Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Before I start, if you're liking what you see, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button for more videos. I'll be posting more regularly. Today I got this ring, a smoky quartz crystal, and I'm going to be using some copper and silver. Let's just get right into it. We're going to cut 3 pieces of 22 square copper wire, and if you see what I'm doing right now in the video, you know how you take a dollar bill and rub it on the edge of a soda machine to get it all straight. I was doing that to my wire and turning it like a rotisserie chicken so that, you know, all sides of that square wire is nice and flat and no bumps and stuff. You know, we're trying to make some real high quality stuff with some, you know, low grade material, and it's not about what you got, it's about what you do with it. So now that we got all that straightened out, we're gonna put those 3 pieces of 22 square together. We're gonna get about 2.5 feet or 3 feet maybe of half round 22 gauge wire, and we're gonna wrap all 3 pieces of square wire together. And if you look real close, I'm really getting in there with my hands and nails, keeping that flat right around the wire. Zoom in really close, you know, it's really tight, you know, there's no spacing, it's just really flush and really clean. And you know, you want to keep that consistent through working with your wire. Alright, so keep in mind the size of the crystal and the size of the ring you'd like to make. You're going to make it a size bigger on the ring mandrel, and you know, keep double checking the crystal size and the size of the ring. I might have left the I made this, you know, gap right here maybe a little too big for the crystal that I use, so I would have made a smaller gap right here. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take this half round wire and feed it through the ring hole. That's the ring hole right there, and we're gonna pull that wire through, and then we're gonna go over the top of the ring and then continue feeding that through until we reach the opposite end. And you know, the gap from, you know, the one end to the other should be the size of the crystal, as I was saying before. And you know, I made this one a little too big, and for a little while I was you know, finagling that crystal to stay in there. You'll see it later on in the video, but you know, I made it work. So we're just gonna keep doing that till we reach the opposite end. Using your pliers, crimp it down, do what you gotta do. Keep it nice and tight and clean and flush. You know, take your time. By this time you should, you know, just take a break, relax, let your hands rest, grab a drink of water, straighten out your back. Definitely have some good posture. Oh, I can't stress that enough. Alright, so once that's done, you're going to feed that last piece of wire through, and then we're going to cut it at the top so that the wire lays on top, and you know, there's going to be no poking, no scratching or anything. Use your pliers, crimp everything down, make sure everything's nice and flat, and then you're gonna choose your gem, your crystal, whatever you'd like. No beads in this section. Maybe we could do that another time. So I have here what is this? A smoky quartz. Alright, so watch how I bend this wire. I use the post on the far left, and I'm gonna bend it straight back over the top, and I'm going to give it a little bend like shaping it around the crystal. So we bent it back up a little bit and shape around the shape of the crystal, and then we're gonna feed it underneath the opposite wires. So if you do exactly what I did right there, you should get this eye shape. We're gonna do the same thing to the other side, and so it's underneath the wires. Alright, so over here I'm like finagling with the wire because the crystal is not sitting right. Sometimes like you just gotta commit to it and it'll tighten itself out. If you're using I'd say like a rough shaped gem or something, it generally works easier, but this is like a weird upside down facet crystal. And it was just, you know, doing what it does. So you just gotta commit to it. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the post through the ring hole. We're gonna feed it through. We're gonna push it through, and then pull it out on the other side. And we're gonna pull it back up. Okay, so we're pulling it back up, and we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. So I'd say this is actually the hardest part. Not really. It's just, yeah, it is probably the hardest part. Depends on what kind of gem you're using. Sometimes it won't stay, sometimes it will. So just like in the first part, we bent it back on itself, up just a little bit, gave it a nice little curve around the crystal, and then we're gonna feed it behind the opposite wires. So I kind of put it on top for just a second, as you can see right there, and then I pulled it back and fed it underneath the wires. Give it that nice little shape, and then we're gonna feed it through the ring hole again. I think this is the most important part, is feeding the wires. You don't want to try and what am I trying to say here? This makes it way easier than any other way. If you tried feeding it like with the end of the wire, like sticking it in with the very ends, it'll get kinked up. You can just try it for yourself. Try feeding it the other way and see what happens. So we're gonna cut the excess from the wires that we just had, the wires that we just fed through the ring holes, and then we're gonna clamp them down with our pliers. You just want a little bit of length so that it sits right underneath or right next to the crystal, so there won't be any movement. Zoom in real close for you guys. And just clamp it on down, just like that. Oh, something else that's also very important is that using the square wire, you want to keep it as flat as possible. So like that little piece you see right there on the bottom of the ring, it's all flat. There's no like twists or curves in it. If it curves or twists, it might scratch you when you put the ring on. So I think that's very essential to doing that piece at least. And so right here we're just shaping it up a little bit. It gives you this nice eye shape. Very nice. As you can see, it's a little loose, and you know, with the other wires, and once everything else is tightened up a little bit, we can crimp it down, get the shape of it right, and it'll be a nice tight fit. And just like that, it looks really nice. You could leave it like that if you'd like, but we're gonna go a step further. And so what I did was I split the two posts, and I wrapped the next one in line with a coil. And the coils, you know, you just wrap single coils down the piece of the wire. I usually start like in the middle or in the end, and then do like 5 or 6 of them, and then push it down towards the bottom. If you do like a bunch of coils and try pushing it down, you're gonna have a hard time, probably bend the wire and get frustrated. You don't want none of that. It's supposed to be fun. So yeah, push the wire down, push the coil down, and then what I did here is I added a little flavor on this. So what I did was, so I'm in between the wires, I'm gonna go over the top. So I'll show you. So I did a coil around so I can show you where you'd be at. Now we're in the middle, and we're gonna go over the top, that top wire. Pull it down just a little bit. You're gonna feel the wire pulling that top wire down. You want to pull it down a little bit, space up the wires, and then we're gonna go in between again and then over that top wire, and then we're gonna go back through the middle. See how close I'm getting my fingers in there? That's how you want to weave your wires. It gets them nice and tight. You're basically shaping it before you actually go around. It gives it a nice strong tight coil. So I did 3 coils around that bottom piece. So I went over the top again. You see how the wire is getting pulled down? You know, you want to let it lax a little bit, pull the wire back up, and you know, allow it to have some space. And so I did 2 coils around the top, and then we were in the middle, and then we're gonna go back around the bottom. I don't think I said anything about that before, but you're just reversing what you did, and it should look like that. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna snip the end behind it, and then we're gonna bend it back on itself. Just like how you did with that first wire. And then we're gonna feed those wires through the ring hole again, pulling the rest of the wires, the excess. At this point it looks a little rough. You know, the flow of the wires isn't right, and that's because of like the tension and the pulling of the wires, and you know, your fingers are pressing as you're pulling and pushing. So we're gonna just not worry about that. We're gonna clip the excess and just continue moving forward. Just pull them up, keep it tight, leave a little bit so that it clamps up there. And if you haven't taken a break by this point, I highly suggest, you know, just putting your stuff down, relax, grab a drink, drink some water, do some meditation. And now we're going to do the same thing to the opposite side. So yes, I suggest at least taking 3 breaks, you know, every 30 minutes. This probably took me an hour and a half, like I said. You know, you don't want to, you know, your hands get achy after a while of doing this. So here's a better view of when I did the coil on that middle piece of wire, and it's gonna show how I bent it back on itself. That top wire is gonna do something funny towards like right where it's bending, but we're just gonna go following the shape of the crystal just like how we did with the first wire, and that last piece of copper wire is going to follow suit as well. You know, bear with me for the recording, and it should formulate to something like this. And then, you know, we do the weave around that top wire where we go 2 over the top and then 3 under the bottom piece, and then another 2 coils on top and 3 under the bottom piece again. And then we're going to snip the excess of that silver wire off right in the back. And the wire should always just make it to the ring band. You know, if it goes any further, you might have some more scratch action, and you know, that's unacceptable. I mean, it's alright, but you know, you don't want your jewelry scratching you, of course. So we're gonna, you know, the shape of the wire is not perfect right now, but that's okay. We're gonna deal with that in a little bit. I mean, you can kind of shape it like I am, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna take it, bend it nicely around that other first piece of copper wire, and then we're gonna feed the wires back through the ring hole, pull them out, snip the ends, and just tuck it right next to the rest of the other pieces of wire. And now at this point you can take a look at the wires, look at the shape of everything. You can use your pliers, or I recommend your fingernails at this point. You could see how there's some bumps and the wire isn't flowing. So just right there, you see how quick that snipping was? That can lead to like a scratch, or you know, damaging the wire, which is why I recommend using your nails. I might have scratched it a bit, but yeah, use your fingers to bend and shape the wire just the way you want it. You don't want to put too much pressure with those pliers. You can easily scratch it and you know, damage your final product. Yeah, see right there in that corner, I probably scratched it up like pretty good. So yeah, just keep looking at it. Look at the flow of the wire. You can see some like weird bumps and whatnot in those corners. And now I'm just, you know how the gem was shaky in there? I just crimped it down so that wire is nice and tight around that crystal, and that crystal ain't going nowhere.